The next question, and I almost hate to bring it up because it gets talked about so much these days, but it is, probably the biggest issue facing the industry, and that is the labor shortage. Personally, I don't think that it's going to be solved anytime soon. Here in Australia, we're hoping that once borders are fully open, that we will have overseas workers that will help fill the gap. But having lost 40% of our industry, it's a huge gap to fill. And generally across the board, unemployment rates are extremely low here. So we're competing with other industries as well. What are your thoughts on, is it a short-term problem, a long-term problem? And how will technology help us bridge that gap?
Yeah, I watched your episode with Max, and I absolutely agree. It's not really a new problem for the industry. It has existed for a long time, and I doubt it will go away as soon as the COVID thing dissolves. Hopefully, it dissolves one day. So there are many other issues we have with our governments and immigration reforms and other policies and politics that prevent us from just solving it in one day. So I don't think it will be completely solved, but I do believe that technology absolutely can help us with that. And there have already been very many successful examples of how utilizing technology helps businesses be more efficient. I recently helped cover a story on one of the local news channels in San Diego about a restaurant that purchased robot servers. Mm-hmm. And he says that the owner says that, I love these guys. They never call in sick. They are never late. They work 24/7. He is saving something. It's a pretty small restaurant, but he was saying, I've saved $6,000 a month. It cost me $6,000 less than the labor would cost me. And it's just much more efficient and more effective and more profitable for him. So plus it's like a tourist attraction. So he's really happy with his decision. It's kind of like an edge case because we don't have to always only look at hardware to replace actual humans, not just robots replacing humans, but there's so many software solutions that can do things just so much more efficiently. Like take revenue management systems, for example. You used to have a staff of 20 dorms and you only have one left, that one dorm director of revenue management using one of the RMS systems that are on the market today manage the same amount of hotels that those 20 people used to be able to manage. Just one example, but there's so many different use cases of similar use cases where technology can help just solve the HR issue. And during the pandemic, many businesses clearly found themselves in the situation when, they only have half the staff that they had before. So it was very, very natural for them to start looking at these technology solutions. And this is clearly one of the reasons we understand, one of the main reasons why tech adoption rates started just spiking during COVID and after COVID. And tech companies actually didn't do very bad. They actually are pretty much the companies that I'm friendly with, and we kind of exchange information. They didn't lose any clients during the pandemic, as opposed to we know how many hotels closed, and it's just like situation was really bad in the industry. But when we take the tech aspect of it, especially the ones that are based on SaaS model, monthly subscription fees, they didn't really hurt much. They probably didn't grow revenue, but they were pretty stable. And again, the main reason is because many businesses, many hospitality companies turned to technology to solve these problems with labor shortage. And, you had 10 people doing something. Now you sign up for a piece of software that costs you 10 times less than the salaries of those 10 people. And then you are more efficient, more effective, more profitable. You're happy, and then others, I want to be happy too, they follow. So that's kind of the chain reaction, and that's what we're seeing. And as we say, in the 2 years of the pandemic, the industry went through 5, 7, 10 years of tech evolution. And I believe mainly because of that issue that we faced with labor. And I think that's going to continue to be the case. And that was also a positive push for many to start understanding that technology is not a foe, it's a friend, and we need to, we should trust it. It can help us. And there's just, again, so many wonderful use cases, not just, with helping operating efficiencies to, to cover for the employees that you don't have, but also in many other areas of application where you can just tremendously benefit from it, and ROI is just, ridiculously amazing. So I think we're going to see positive trends going forward.
Yeah, I would agree. I think there's still a long way to go, actually. As we said before, I'm seeing some hotel managers still, even though they've got the labor shortage, they're reticent to go down the technology route, thinking that the high touch will be lost. But I think it's inevitable that we're going to have to make change. I see too many general managers these days having to roll up their sleeves and actually, check people in. The other day I called a hotel and the financial controller was actually on the front desk, which, I've spent 30 years in the industry. I've never seen a financial controller actually checking people in on the front desk before. So it's a sign of the times. So
companies are desperate, hotels are desperate, but that just goes to show how conservative the industry is. They're willing to close half of the hotel and lose so much money instead of, putting a self-check-in kiosk at the front desk, right? It doesn't make any sense to me again, but this is just what we're seeing because we're still a conservative industry, and there's still a lot of education to be done, in the area of technology adoption.
And that's why we're talking today. I think we need to educate the industry and let them know that, technology does not mean that you have to dispose of high touch. It can actually mean the reverse. It can free up time that the existing staff have. So if you've actually, checked in like we do with the airlines before you leave home, when you arrive at the hotel, all the paperwork is done. You just need to collect a key. You can do that from the person at the front desk. You could probably do it from a kiosk or a
machine. Yeah, you don't even need the person. You can be like, again, Citizen M. I love that use case. I use it all the time with my students. You get a barcode on your phone, you scan it, and key pops up, and you go. That's all that is needed. And one of the examples, like one of my favorite examples of very simple piece of technology that improves the high touch is Google Maps. I mean, that's everybody uses it now. But when I started my career in housekeeping, and then I moved on to the front desk, which was a big upgrade for me. I remember when I was working at the front desk, about 20 times a day, I had to answer the phone to answer how to get to my hotel. Yes. Right on Broadway, left on 6th. I'll never forget that. And so I had to do that. And I was checking in a customer. I was alone by myself at the front desk. I was checking a person in, the phone rings, I have to answer it. Right on Broadway, left on 6th. So I get distracted. The customer doesn't feel like it's a personal service. So Google Maps shows up, nobody calls anymore. Everybody understands how to get to the hotel because it's a little simple piece of technology that just makes our lives so much more convenient. The customers are happy, they know where they're going. Front desk people are happy because they don't have to answer 20 of those calls during the day. They can provide much better customer service. Just one very little simple example, but there are, again, so many different use cases, chatbots, and more complex software systems like CRM systems and RMS and everything else that just adds to providing much better quality customer service.
Yep. Just picking up on the comment regarding Citizen M, one of the things that I think they do particularly well, and I think it's a great example of how a self-check-in kiosk or key dispenser should be deployed. They actually have ambassadors there. So if the guest is not comfortable, then there's somebody to assist them. If the guest is comfortable, those ambassadors are fully trained baristas. So those ambassadors are not there to do, what I would call the paperwork, which is what we see in a traditional front desk. I was talking to someone the other day about, we were talking about airlines and how using, either a barcode, obviously, on a printed piece of paper or your phone, you can load an aeroplane, with 300 people in 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. Yet it's not very personal or personable or hospitable, however you want to say it. Yet, when you get to a hotel, you get queues. And I said to them, great example, I was on a flight 2 weeks ago. I checked in. The flight attendant actually welcomed me by name. When I got to the hotel, I didn't get welcomed by name. It was like, I'm checking in. What's your name? can I have your form of ID? Can I have a credit card? And can you sign here? So the actual process, to be honest, with the airline, I thought was more friendly than the actual hotel check-in. And I would have preferred to have arrived at the hotel with all of that paperwork done and just been handed a key or collected a key, as you said, via machine using a barcode. So I think technology can really, it doesn't have to be a sterile experience.
Yeah, I mean, at the point after you have spent 30 minutes waiting in line at the front desk to be checked in, I don't think you care so much about personalized service anymore. You don't want to see them again. But I think what will be really cool is when, hopefully not if, but hopefully when hotels implement the face recognition technology. When I went to Singapore last year, a couple of years ago, that was before the pandemic. It took me 5 minutes to go through TSA and onboarding and board the plane, because I didn't even have to take out my boarding pass or my passport. I just went through a few machines that just scanned my face. They knew who I was. So one day, hopefully this will happen. I'm sure that there are probably already hotels in Asia somewhere that implement that technology.
Yes, it's and in China there are some as well, of course. Alibaba's Flysoo Hotel has that technology. I think there is still some concerns over privacy certainly in countries like Australia, but you're quite right. When you leave Australia, from an immigration point of view, it is all done now on facial recognition, and it just streamlines that process so much. It really, I think people are happy to use the technology because it's so convenient and actually has a benefit for them.
Yeah, I think very soon we will be divided by, into countries that have a seamless check-in process, 5-minute check-in process, and those who are concerned about privacy. So it's their choice where they want to be in terms of technology adoption. I mean, privacy is important, but this technology exists everywhere. I mean, face recognition is already, like, our data is out there, but that's a whole separate discussion.